Today is the birthday of Todd Rundgren. Now, Todd was somebody whose music I really only started to get into about 4 or 5 years ago, and that's a story I'll get into a little bit later, but I wanted to show you some of the albums. I ended up becoming an all-album person of his because his sound just fascinated me so much. You know, so much of pop rock singer-songwriter music kind of sounds the same, you know, but there are innovators out there like the Beatles and the Beach Boys who just have amazing breadths of material, or XTC in England, and Todd Rundgren is one of those, and he is one of those multi-instrumental artists. You know, he plays all the instruments, and that's very rare in rock and roll. Usually it's a band type of situation, but he's a multi-instrumentalist, and this was his first album from 1971 called Runt, which was his nickname. It has a cartoon drawing on the back. This is a Bearsville original release. There's a CD. And this album had a hit called We Gotta Get You a Woman. And he was very inspired by people like Laura Nyro and people like Carole King. Very soul-inflected, from the Philly area. Had a wonderful voice, wonderful facility on guitar and other instruments. Excellent album. This has a cover that I suppose today you would call kind of grimdark. It's kind of confusingly called Runt, the Ballad of Todd Rundgren. It's a little dusty there. Sorry about that. This might have been actually meant as a double album to go with his first one, but it actually is a different album. And this one, the material's a little bit starker. I don't think this had a huge hit on it, but it's definitely a follow-up to the last one, and shows a kind of a darker side of his songwriting. Now, this is the album that really changed his career. The songs that everybody knows by Rundgren are from this 1972 double album called Something Anything. That's disc 2. And this is disc 1. It's the inside of that. It's his home recording studio. Now, the songs that were really big on this were I Saw the Light, which begins the album on disc 1, and Hello It's Me, which is the 9th cut on disc 2. But there are some other really wonderful songs on this, like Breathless, which is I believe that's the one, Breathless, is a terrific instrumental on various early synthesizers. This album is one of the earliest serious rock albums to integrate a lot of synthesizers into it. It's an absolute work of genius. This album came when Todd was listening to a lot of Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. It's a very sprawling record called A Wizard, a True Star. There's no real individual song highlights on this. It's all one piece. It goes even beyond progressive rock. It's very much in the Zappa vein. Some very obtuse metaphysical lyrics on this album. A lot of people call Todd as an artist who went very pretentious on this, abandoning his singer-songwriter roots for progressive rock. But hey, that's punk liturgy, and Todd Rundgren is not about punk rock and not about limiting himself to more than 3 chords. No more than 3 chords. And you're not going to find any 3-chord songs in this particular album. Not for a long shot. This is a double album that came out recently. Todd Rundgren's first album with the first lineup of Utopia, which features a long progressive number called The Icon. Utopia were one of the more jazz-oriented, actually, of the progressive rock bands of the 70s. Very fusion-oriented, very, very Mothers of Invention sounding, and they recorded this album Another Live. They're both really nice records. There's also a song on here called Freak Parade. There's Todd Rundgren on guitar. Great liner notes as well. Wonderful double set. You ought to look for it. This is a 1974 double album called Todd. And there's a song on here called A Dream Goes On Forever, which was actually a pretty good hit for him, and a kind of comical song called An LP's Worth of Tunes, spelled phonetically, about how he kind of felt that he was, you know, pimping himself musically at that time, and people simply didn't want to hear what he had to say musically. Very much in league of Wizard of True Star, that album. Initiation, now, this was released in 1975. It's actually sort of a Utopia album, but this is a very spiritual set. Very advanced recording techniques for its time. Sounds like it was actually made in the early 80s at some points. Real Man actually quotes from the Bible a little bit. And Born to Synthesize is basically an a cappella number featuring Todd in a number of different vocal connotations. The lyrics on this are extremely obtuse, and you have to think about this album a little bit. But it's one of my favorite Rundgren albums. I don't find it pretentious at all. I think that it speaks very heavily to the human spirit. If you're one of those people who don't listen to the music fashion police, who seem to be ruled by the punk world forever or whatever, I'm not going to get into that. And this is Faithful. Not much of a cover from 1976, but this album is a mixture of originals and cover songs that he had done. He does a cover of Good Vibrations, The Beatles' Rain, which was a B-side they have, Strawberry Fields Forever, and, you know, things like that. But he also has a song on here called Love of the Common Man. It's actually one of his better albums, getting more back to his singer-songwriter roots, most uniformly. Here's another Utopia set. The beginning of their second lineup. Their second album, Raw, and Oops, Wrong Planet from 1977. Oops, Wrong Planet actually made them a little more poppy sounding, but Raw has a song that I love called Hiroshima, which is pronounced Hiroshima. You can pronounce it both ways, which is about the atomic bombing of that city in August of 1945. And it actually uses some very interesting profanity in it. Not a song for the faint of heart, but excellent Todd Rundgren message song. I'll open it up and show you a little bit of what the inside of it looks like. There's all the members, and Todd, Roger Powell, Kasim Sultan. This album Todd made in New York State at a place called Mink Hollow in 1978, and it's a return to his classic sound. Basic singer-songwriter album, and he actually had some hits on this album and made some early videos. All the Children Sing being among them, and the big hit was Can't We Still Be Friends. But You Cried Wolf is a song that I personally liked from this album. Very basic, soulful singer-songwriter album. Sounds like a Hall & Oates album in parts, actually. But you know, they're both from Philly, so kind of makes sense that they would sound that way. This is an album called Back to the Bars. A double live album where he does a lot of material with Utopia and from his solo career. Actually a really nice album. And that's part one of Todd Rundgren's musical au revoir, I think is the way it's pronounced, from the 70s. And let's go on to what I have from the 80s up till now.